Hello, I am Elaine House, formerly Elaine Watson, and I was born right here in Tucson, Arizona. I attended school from first grade through University of Arizona graduate, and I'm very, very happy to be here this afternoon.
Good morning. My name is Doris Faye Watson. Lived in Tucson for these 75 years. I am now Doris Faye Williams. Attended first through college years in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. Went to Tucson High School. Attended University of Arizona, worked for years in our community in Tucson.
Hello, I'm Lisa Watson. I was born and raised here in Tucson, Arizona. Again, like my sisters, went to elementary school, middle school, and high school, and also the University of Arizona.
You want to tell us a little bit about your growing up?
Okay, yes, growing up in Tucson. I didn't realize, or I never thought that growing up in Tucson was something different. And I say different because it was other people who moved from another place coming to Tucson thought, oh, this is so different here. It's because we're in the southwestern desert, and we have a smaller community of African Americans. We have neighborhoods that are mixed or blended when I grew up. And I grew up on, in two locations. On the south side of Tucson off South Park and 32nd Street. I was just about 4 years when my parents decided to move to what we call the north side at that time. And we relocated to Adams Street, kind of in the corridor of 4th Avenue, 1st Avenue, between Speedway and Grant. And there's a lot that we could talk about growing up on that side of town. But my fondest memories was being in that house, and with my other siblings. We have who passed away, an older sister and two brothers who passed away, but we're very, very a part of the family, obviously. We're a very close family. And that's kind of my start. We'll talk more about it, I guess, as we go on.
Elaine's given you a plethora of the family, but I'm going to go a step further. I was the second born, lived in 1120 East 32nd Street. That was birthed into us growing up off of Park and 32nd Street. Mm-hmm. When we moved from that area, I was really hurt because most of my friends lived in that area. We attended Lawn Holiday Elementary School. And all of my friends then went on to, the junior high and high school. And when we moved, I had to go to another school. And we moved to University Heights area. And that's the elementary school I went to then. But growing up in Tucson was difficult for me because of the expectations and the way I looked. Wasn't a lot of African Americans that we were around. And that's what I was used to. I'm older. I'm much older, the 75-year-old that just had a hard time adjusting. But eventually you do adjust because you had parents that helped you to grow into the person you're supposed to be.
Well, I am the seventh child out of seven to Plato and Clotilde Watson. And mother, her maiden name is O'Neill. They both come from Texas. So I'm going to go a little step of some history, what Daddy told me. He said that when he moved here to Tucson, to Arizona, it was a culture shock. He didn't realize how many Mexicans there were because they came from an all-black small town in Texas. So it was predominantly African American. But when he came here, he said it was a culture shock. So I was born on East Adams, on that street, on that side of town, as we said, the north side. Mm-hmm. And my brothers and sisters, most of them, I would say most, went to Tucson High, which was like a legacy until my brother Tim, he's older than me. He's about 7 years older, I think, 7 years. The boundaries changed. And we were disappointed because we couldn't continue that legacy at Tucson High. I went to University Heights Elementary School, and it was a colorful group. It was, we had white, we had Hispanics, we had Asian, we had Black or African American. It was a rainbow. And it was cool because we all got along together. We didn't really say, "Ooh, you're a Black person," or "You have this type of hair." But it was just fun. We were friends. And then when I went with him to Tucson High, and they said my mom went with them, and they said, "Well, you can't go here anymore. You can't. We changed the boundaries." Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was what was it called? The DSEG?
Yeah.
It was just about that time of the DSEG. The famous DSEG order came in, and
they changed the borders. So in our area, the north side, it was mostly African American. They were moving towards university area, this area, and the legacy of Tucson High was powerful. Not only I'm not talking about sports. Although our two brothers played rigorously in football, basketball, baseball, track, yes, Eric and Michael Watson. But it was just also, I believe, academics. Because I believe that my siblings got a well-rounded education there at Tucson High. It feels like it, I was little. I didn't know, but it just felt like they were because Mom and Dad were very, very, they were on education. Mm-hmm. They wanted us to be educated, mm-hmm. and they didn't let us slip up. So I think they had a lot of contact with that school, a lot of close, the coaches, everything was it was like a tight-knit group. And then we were cut from that. And Timmy and we went to Catalina High School. Tim can tell you a lot more about the struggle he had in the mid-'70s going to there, because he graduated in 1977. And it's around when Roots came out, and there was a struggle with the students there. When I got there in the 80s, it was still a little rocky, but I in high school, I know I'm talking a lot, but in high school, I did a lot. I tried to be involved.
Be active, right?
Yeah. Yes, very active. So, you have to do that. You have to step up a little bit more.
Yeah,
in this community.
Why you have that, and community is a good word, mm-hmm. because I think in my upbringing, I had pretty much a line. I'm trying to think of the word, but it was from elementary to junior high to high school, and you follow, like Doris was saying, mm-hmm. she didn't have that opportunity to follow her friends through the different levels of school, and then coming from a family of parents who did get as far as maybe first year college. Help me out if I remember.
Yes.
Education was very, very important to our mm-hmm. father, our both parents. Mm-hmm. And that was the way to make it to another level. And the community around you pushed that. Not probably more in their community because, as Lisa said, they had an all African American community, and so everybody was just very focused. Even all of our parents, all of our aunts and uncles, our other relatives, older relatives, are educators. They have
principals,
principals, teachers. And you got a brother coming in a minute, and so education was so very important. And unlike Lisa, my schooling was like a breeze because of, I think, going through those steps of elementary, middle school, high school, and the flow was just there. I love school. I love school so much that I became a teacher and eventually did some other things in TUSD, Tucson Unified School District, as well as when I moved for a time to California. So that was, I guess, one thing we could say about our family. Overwhelmingly is that education.
Number one.
Yes.
Just to echo what Elaine is saying, that's what opened the door to the love of education was our parents. Reading, understanding what the reading is, being there for us when we had questions. School was the number one priority, and it's really prominent when I hear Elaine and Lisa talk about it. School was number one. I worked for TUSD. Went on to help young people continue school that did not want to go to school. Worked with the underserved community to encourage them to continue. So it all came from our parents.
Yes.
So you've talked about who your parents, your parents were so supportive. You've not told us names, where they were from, how they got here, what brought them here. So I'll leave that to one of you all to tell that story.
Well, our parents, Plato Watson, and his real name is Flash, but he didn't like the name, so he changed it.
He was a philosopher.
Yes, he changed it to Plato. And Mom's name was Clotilde Flora O'Neill. They met in Houston County, a small town called Lovelady or Fordyce. I don't know which one. Lovelady.
Lovelady.
Daddy came from a family of farmers. So they had a farm, so very, very rooted in agriculture. He went to Prairie View, I think, for just maybe a year, and he wanted to be a farmer. He wanted to study agriculture. But then he dropped out. I think things happened. Mother wanted to be a beautician. Right? Yeah. And so she went to get her cosmetology license. So Mother was very close to her family. And there's some gaps there in her family. There's some, deep-rooted separation issues in that time in her family. So when she got older, I think she really wanted to keep her family together. She wanted to be with her mother. Her brothers and her sister and her in-laws, along with her mother, moved out here to Arizona.
And just for context, that is 1940-ish.
40-ish. Yes.
40 early.
Yes.
You're speaking about your grandmother.
Her name was
Ira Brown.
We can name some relatives. How about that? Let's just name some, because there was Tessie O'Neill.
Yes.
Oldest sister. Wilbert O'Neill, who was a brother who we remember was alive at that time. Lewis O'Neill. Francis Brown?
No, Francis Johnson. No.
We're working on it.
She was a Brown. You're right.
I thought she was a Brown.
Yeah.
Francis Brown. There was an Ira Gibson.
That's our grandmother.
Yes.
Yes.
And then I'm thinking of the younger
Oh,
sibling.
Eva May.
Eva
Eva
May.
Yeah, and
Uncle Louis.
yeah, and we mentioned him.
Oh, you mentioned
yeah.
that.
And-
so yeah.
Yeah, and just to fill in a gap while it's fresh
Yes,
on my mind,
Yes.
the movement from Texas to, I'm going to say, the West was like Lisa had mentioned about our father wanting to be in agriculture and grow and farm. That was not for everybody, because most people worked in the fields and didn't have the opportunity to own land and to grow, and so they were looking for something to feed the mouths of their family. So they had to move, and many of them moved, used the route from the southern route going through Phoenix, Tucson, on their way to California.
Yes.
However, some stopped in, shall I say, Marana,
Marana.
where there were cotton fields. And
Yeah.
that is where a lot of money could have been made. And
Yes.
that was part of the
That's what-
story,
Yes.
that
Yes.
let's make a lot of money.
Yes.
And we're going to go to Marana and
Yes.
pick.
Yeah.
So,
And they lived in tents.
tent cities, yeah.
It was called Tent City, and that's where they lived.
Yes.
Right.
So to continue, Daddy, he was working at what's the aircraft company?
North America.
North America. North American during the
Talk about the
war.
war.
More.
It was the war, so he was, helping with the airplanes and all that. Mother's family moved to Arizona. Mother really wanted to be with her family. Daddy had an opportunity to go to San Francisco, where there was a plant there. Yeah.
My name is Octavius Watson. I'm the sixth child of Plato Clotilde. My father, he had told me that he had an opportunity to move to Kansas City.
Oh, I thought it was California.
It was
Kansas City.
Oh. See, I heard it was San Francisco.
And it was California too.
Okay.
Because the story is big.
Yes.
North American
Mm-hmm.
to transfer to Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, and so he had that opportunity, but Mother, he loved his wife. And our oldest sister, she was younger, Joyce. She was about, I don't know, 4?
Somewhere between 3 or 4.
3 or 4, toddler.
4 years old.
So he wanted to, please Mom. So they, I don't know how they communicated, but my dad came here first. Because his in-laws said, they called him Watt. Watt, come on out here. There's an opportunity. You can make lots of money. And so Daddy was like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah. And so he came out here to Marana. And he said, and I'm quoting Daddy, he said, and bless my soul, they were picking cotton.
He didn't know
He didn't
that
know.
was the work.
Yes.
And
He didn't
said,
know. He was like, oh, wow.
And
Oh,
we,
wow.
we also have stories of kind of when he came to himself, I guess, and
Yes.
Mama, and the family was relocated, the young family was relocated.
Mm-hmm.
He talked to those same brother-in-laws,
And
our
said, "We
uncles,
could-"
and asked about, well, let's do something else. We don't have to do the hard
hard
labor. Our
Yes.
wives don't have to work in someone
houses.
else's house
House.
or cleaning and cooking. Let's buy a laundry. People who
laundromat.
need their
Their
clothes
clothes
washed
washed.
and pressed and such and such. Let's do that. Well, just like Daddy,
Doing
bless my soul, he says, because most of our uncles were very not as educated.
They weren't
Maybe
educated.
stopped at 3rd, 4th grade. So their thought was, okay, what? You're well educated. You have more education than us. How do we know you're not going to
Take the money.
cheat us and
Yes.
take some money?
Yeah.
And we kind of laughed.
Yes.
Because it's like, what?
What? He said, yeah, he said, our wives don't have to work. We can have a laundromat, and this is on South Park. And he said, we can have a laundromat and, go in together. And they just, because Daddy had
A
education.
little bit of education.
And in the
Had a lot of thought.
in the
Had some
meantime-
forethought too, vision.
Yes.
He met a man, Paul. That was during the time of meeting Paul Renfro. And
Excuse
Paul
me.
really saw the worth in Plato Watson. He saw the worth in him. He was smart. Daddy was, as Elaine just gave you that. He was a go-getter, and he wanted to make change. And in wanting to make change, he went a step further. He built the house we were raised in. He dug the cesspool so that we would have an indoor toilet. He grew plants around the house. He raised chickens. He raised turkeys for Thanksgiving. He did all of that. He put fences around the houses so people in that area began to see him doing this. Even though he came here to work in Marana, as was shared, he became the go-getter of the community, and people start moving out.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was a quiet man. I don't want to overdo this, but I just in that go-getter, doesn't have to be a loud,
No,
boisterous kind of a
he
person.
wasn't.
He
He
was
just-
very calm, quiet, but he got the job done.
Yes.
And in all of that getting, another very important factor in growing up a Watson was our spiritual
Yes.
development as
Yes.
well. And so it was my mother. It was Clotilde.
Yes. Yes.
She was the one that was on the lookout for a church. And we're not doing anything else, but we're going to find a church, is what she would tell my father.
Yes.
So the story goes.
Yes.
So they found a church, and they walked before they had a car. They walked to the church, which was a few blocks away, and really became mainstays
Yeah.
of that particular church, Southside Baptist Church, on the corner of South 2nd Avenue and
22nd?
24th Street.
24th.
24th Street.
Yeah,
Yes.
the building is still there. I
Yes.
don't know if there's anything
Building
going
is
on.
there. Yes, it is still there. And
Yeah.
they were, I remember the story, because Daddy was raised African Methodist Episcopal. And so Mother was Baptist, and she was determined to find a church.
Yeah,
And
that was very important.
Yeah.
Very
So
important.
they found Southside, and the pastor at the time was Reverend S.A. Dabner.
Right.
Sam something.
Sam Abner Dabner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So that influenced us,
yeah.
Yes.
I think, a lot.
Yes.
In a lot of
Education,
ways.
spirituality.
Yes. And that
You did.
also kept, I guess, rooted in the African American community. That kept us rooted, because when and Timmy, I told them about Catalina.
So you can fill it in.
You can feel that. So, I think going to church, an all-black church, also helped us realize what Mother and Daddy, how they were raised, how they were connected, because some of the people at that church came from Texas too, or Louisiana, or down south. So they had those old ways, and it's interesting the way traditions just move with the
Right,
people.
right.
Even though they were here in the Southwest, they kept their Southern ways.
Absolutely.
And the cooking and the food, dinners.
gatherings.
I think going to church, education was
Number one.
one thing
Yeah.
that helped us. It was Sunday school in the morning, church. We had a church service in the evening. We would go there and do that.
Yeah.
It was nonstop. Because, I think our parents really wanted us to do better what they were doing.
Yes.
That was the whole goal behind their lives with us. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
agree.
they did.
They were very innovative. They were encouragers. But encouraging, you can encourage kids to do things. But one of the things I realized, we had relatives that smoked, that drank, and did all, but none of that was allowed in our house. And I was very inquisitive, and I wanted to know why. Mom said, because that's not the way we live. So you leave it at that. I think about, I'm much older, but it started with the older ones to encourage the young ones to buy into what Mom and Daddy was saying. And if we were okay, then Elaine was going to be okay, Lisa was going to be okay, Timmy was going to be okay, and the rest of them were going to be okay. They were loving, caring. Something I forgot to say, and I remember when I got really sick one year because it was a lot of rain and the weather was different. And Daddy had, my dad had made friends with a lot of people in the community. He made friends with a doctor, and my tonsils had swollen. And this man said, bring her to St. Mary's Hospital. We're going to take her tonsils out. I remember so vividly being in a hospital room with all these white kids. Seriously. And when Dr. Kitt came in, he said, this is Plato Watson's daughter. And I didn't know what that meant until I got older. A lot of those kids were children of families that Daddy had done work for and had built a relationship with. So our father was a man that built relationships. He didn't break them down, he built them, just as he built a community where we lived.
And Mother also reached out with her talents. Mother could sew. She sewed everything. She tailored clothes. It was
Made
word of mouth.
wedding dresses, bridesmaids dresses
Yes.
for our oldest
Yes.
sister's wedding.
Yes.
She also made the uniforms for the soldiers before she came to
Right, she was-
Arizona.
She was in
Seamstress.
Yeah, seamstress.
She worked with a seamstress.
Seamstress.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
so. Yeah. But but the connection, it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
And Mother had, it's funny because now we talk about side hustles. Mom had
Yeah, side hustles. She
I mean,
did.
she could make clothes. They would come over. I
clothes.
remember because she would set up the dining room table, and these women would come. I remember Sister Burns, Reverend Burns' wife, especially. She was so pretty, so with a little flipped hair and all that. And Mother would measure and hem and all that, and it was very precise, but she was happy during that time. Mother was like, that she was in her element. You couldn't really talk to her when she was sewing and doing all of that because, like I said, the dining room table became, cutting and piecing together the patterns, and it was just, I didn't get that talent, I'll tell you that.
and just that reminds me of something that I picked up as I got older and started watching TV. And I hope you may have to bleep it out, but the Martha Stewart of that fame,
Of that neighborhood.
cooking and baking and all that. I said, Martha has nothing. My mother has. She was the original one because she made the most delicate, beautiful, laid out teas, afternoon teas.
Oh my gosh.
Including sandwiches with the
Crust
cut
off.
precisely made. And then sewing. And then,
Sneak one.
I don't know if she ever got her hands in the garden, but
No.
she could cook too. It's like, where does she get all these skills and these wonders?
She used to work
And
in that dairy. She used to work.
That's where Mother's there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. As a
She
cook.
used to work as a cook.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm just thinking that connection of the Watson family to the community, what gems they were
Yes.
in the Tucson community. Maybe in those little spaces on South Park, the little bigger space on the north side in Sugar Hill area,
Yes.
And it worked for
especially in churches. Though
Yes.
that's where our larger community was
Yeah.
always connected with a church, Phoenix, Tucson, and all
Yeah,
around.
all
So,
around.
but
Yeah.
it was interesting growing up,
Yeah. And I
having to compare
Compare all that.
or
Yeah.
grow with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think Mother and Daddy, the way they portrayed themselves in the public, in the community, it even trickles down now because I'll say my name, like Lisa Watson. Oh, you're Watson. Yes.
Watson.
Are you Eric? Are you ready to Eric Watson? Mike, yeah. Or, oh, Doris? Oh, yes, that's my sister. Elaine? Yeah. Tim? Oh, I just love Tim. I love Coach.
Coach.
Coach. So it's like,
Yeah.
We don't have political prominence here in Tucson. You know, we don't have that. But I think what we do have is Mother and Daddy came here. I get emotional.
Yeah.
It's okay.
They didn't have a sturdy plan. But when they came here and established roots, they said, this is home. And so they did their best. And compared to a lot of my friends that I grew up with my parents, I say I'm blessed. I'm blessed because they didn't change. I was a child of the 80s, okay, high school and, 80s, but they did not change from Joyce, who was born in the 40s, Doris in the late 40s, Eric in the 50s, Michael in the 50s, Elaine in the 50s, Timmy in the 50s.
End of the 50s.
Yeah, the end of the 50s. Their discipline, their rules did not, yes, it's a steady. It didn't change. I mean, they were older when I was growing up, but they may have been a little tired, but they sure did keep me in line, and so I just feel that, yeah, they didn't have a lot of, how would I say, prowess in the city, but they had respect.
Yeah, what do they call that? That kind of capital, social capital, financial capital.
Right.
They had a capital.
They had a capital.
Where a good name, and that was something we were taught. Yeah, a good name.
A good mother, she had money all the time. She would not touch her purse.
I know. She was
She had money. Sewing.
Yes.
Like Lisa said, side hustles.
Yes, side hustles.
In the best way possible.
Yes. I mean, we never went without, let's say that. We never went without.
Had good, nourishing food.
All the time.
Nice home. I mean, yes.
Cleanliness.
Yes.
Because, the Bible was always a start. That was it. That was the beginning. Cleanliness is next to godliness. And if you don't do that, Mom and Daddy, I'm 75 years old, but these two people raised some awesome children in different
eras.
I mean, seriously. I mean, then our friends, they had heart. I'm sorry, I get to talking because they had a heart and a love. Because our friends could come over, and to this day, I have friends say, Miss Watson, oh, she was such a wonderful lady. Mr. Watson, he would talk to you, hey, son. I mean, they were the epitome of what I would love to be, because I would, But anyway, they were awesome two people.